Love. Not the kind you perform, not the kind you paste on your face when you're exhausted and someone at work is being completely unbearable. Think about what Paul's world looked like when he wrote those words from a Roman prison. Cold stone floors, chains around his wrists, the faint smell of torch smoke and damp walls. Surrounded by people who had every reason to hate each other. Jews and Gentiles, slaves and freemen. People with centuries of cultural wounds sitting in the same room trying to call each other brothers. And into that mess, Paul writes about love, not as a feeling, but as a fruit, something that grows, something that comes from a source outside yourself. Because if love were just a feeling, it would have died in that prison cell a long time before he ever picked up the pen. The branch doesn't generate its own water. It doesn't wake up every morning and decide to produce nutrients. The sap just moves. And when the Spirit of God is genuinely active inside you, love stops being this exhausting performance you put on for people who deserve it and becomes something that quietly leaks out, even toward people who don't. That shift is the part nobody warns you about. It reaches further than you intended. It softens you in moments where you would have normally shut down. It shows up for the colleague who irritates you, the family member who's hurt you more than once, the stranger who gives you nothing in return. You stop needing the other person to deserve it first. That shift doesn't happen because you tried harder. It happens because something changed at the root level. And that's where the real work of the Spirit begins.
Joy. And here's where people get confused, because joy and happiness are not the same thing. Happiness has an address. It lives at the corner of good news and favorable circumstances. And the moment those change, happiness packs up and leaves. The early church understood this in ways we've almost forgotten. They gathered in hidden rooms, whispering prayers, breaking bread by candlelight, always one knock on the door away from arrest. They had no guaranteed tomorrow. And yet, read the letters, read Acts. There's this undercurrent of something that defies the surrounding darkness, something that even chains couldn't fully muffle. That's not happiness. That's joy. And it's built differently. Joy is this quiet, almost stubborn confidence that something good is holding you even when the moment is terrible. You can't manufacture it. You can try. Believe me, people try. Gratitude journals, mindset shifts, positive affirmations at 6 a.m. Those things aren't bad, but none of them can produce what the Spirit produces. Because Spirit-born joy isn't anchored to your situation. It's anchored to something you know, something settled, something that already happened. The resurrection, the promise, the fact that the story doesn't end in the dark. Once that reality becomes real to you, not just information you know, but something you've actually landed on, joy starts showing up in places where it has no business being. In the waiting room, in the layoff, in the season where everything you built feels like it's coming undone, and you won't even fully understand why you feel okay. You just do. That's not denial. That's the fruit of a root that goes deeper than your circumstances ever could.
Peace. Okay, so real talk. Most people think peace means quiet, like no conflict, no noise, no hard conversations. But step back into the ancient world for a second. The Roman Empire had a concept called Pax Romana, the peace of Rome, and it looked impressive from a distance. No wars in the streets, orderly roads, stable trade, but underneath it, brutal military occupation, silent oppression, the kind of peace that's really just controlled fear. That's the world Paul was writing into. And when he uses the word eirene, the Greek word for peace, he's deliberately reaching for something the Roman Empire could never offer. Biblical peace, what the Greek calls eirene, is closer to the idea of completeness. Nothing missing, nothing out of place. The Hebrew version, shalom, carries the same weight. It's not an absence of noise, it's a wholeness of being. And the reason that matters is because most people are secretly at war with their own lives. They're fighting their past, dreading their future, and white-knuckling their present. They look calm at the office, calm on Instagram, calm at the dinner table, and they're completely unraveling on the inside. The Spirit's peace is different because it doesn't depend on things being resolved. Philippians 4:7 describes it as surpassing all understanding, which is essentially saying it won't make sense to outside observers. You'll be in a hard season, and people will look at you and ask how you're still standing. And you'll say, I'm okay, actually. And you'll mean it. The branch doesn't panic about the wind. It's rooted. That rootedness, that unshakable inner settledness is what the Spirit grows in you when you stop trying to control every outcome with your own two hands.
Patience. There's a version of patience that's just suppressed frustration. You've worn it. Maybe you're wearing it right now. The tight jaw, the slow breath you take before answering someone who has, for the third time this week, done the exact thing they know drives you sideways. That's not patience. That's barely managed anger with a polite face on. It's exhausting, and it's not what Paul is pointing to. The Greek word here is makrothumia, long suffering. It's a word that carries weight. It was used to describe a soldier who could hold his position under sustained pressure without breaking rank, not because he felt nothing, but because something underneath him was stable enough to absorb the hit without collapsing. The Israelites in the desert had to learn this the brutal way. 40 years. 40 years of manna every morning, of sand in their sandals, of the same horizon stretching out endlessly in front of them. Most of them didn't wait well. They grumbled. They built golden calves. They interpreted the silence as abandonment. And if we're honest, most of us do the same thing. We get 3 weeks into the wait and start wondering if God forgot us. We start forcing outcomes. We start making moves out of anxiety instead of wisdom. Spirit-grown patience doesn't erase the wait. It changes what happens inside you during it. The branch doesn't rush the season. It can't. But it also doesn't rot during winter. It just holds. That holding, without bitterness, without panic, without forcing the fruit before it's ready, that's what patience actually looks like. And sometimes, when you finally come out the other side, the delay reveals itself for what it always was. A kindness you couldn't read yet. Kindness. Here's something nobody talks about. Kindness is radical in a world designed to make you hard, and it always has been. In the ancient Near East, hospitality to strangers was countercultural. It was dangerous. Showing kindness to the wrong person could cost you your safety, your resources, your standing in the community. And yet, it runs through the entire biblical narrative like a thread. Ruth staying with Naomi when leaving would have been the smart move. The Good Samaritan crossing the road when every social instinct told him to keep walking. Jesus touching lepers, actually touching them, in a culture where that kind of contact could make you untouchable yourself. Kindness in the spirit has always required something from the person giving it. That's still true today. Think about how much of modern life pushes you towards self-protection. People disappoint you. Systems fail you. You extend yourself once and it costs you. And the next time someone needs something, there's a part of you that calculates before it gives. That's not weakness. That's a wound responding the only way it knows how. But kindness, the spirit-born version, is almost like a resistance movement. It pushes back against all of that hardening. Not in a naive way, like you're pretending people aren't complicated. More like you see the complication clearly, and you extend something good anyway. A branch that's full of sap doesn't have to be convinced to bud. The life just expresses itself. When the spirit is genuinely active in you, kindness starts showing up in places you didn't plan. In the softness of your tone, in the pause before you respond, in the grace you offer someone on a day they clearly haven't earned it. Goodness. Now this one goes deeper than kindness, and people often collapse them together, but they're not the same. Kindness is what shows on the surface, the warmth you extend, the gesture people can see. Goodness is the thing underneath. It's the integrity that holds even when the audience disappears. In the ancient world, the Hebrew concept of tov, good, wasn't just a moral category, it was a wholeness word. When God looked at creation and said it was good, he wasn't checking boxes. He was describing something complete, aligned, functioning exactly as it was designed to. That's the root of what goodness means here. And here's why that matters to you, right now in your real life. Most of us have a public self and a private one. The public version keeps its promises, shows up on time, does the right thing where it can be seen. And then there's the quiet version, the one that makes small compromises when the stakes feel low. The cutting corner, the half-truth, the moment where the right thing and the easy thing diverge and nobody would know the difference except you. Spirit-grown goodness starts changing that private self. Not through guilt. Guilt alone never sustained real change. It changes through transformation at the root. When the roots of who you are start to shift, the choices that used to feel tempting start to feel misaligned with who you're becoming. Like wearing clothes that no longer fit. You begin to want what's actually good, not just what's acceptable in public. And that shift from external performance to internal alignment is what separates religious behavior from genuine transformation. One is maintained, the other is grown. Faithfulness. This one is quiet. It doesn't look dramatic. It won't trend anywhere. It won't get a standing ovation or make a great highlight reel. But maybe, just maybe, it's the one that holds everything else together. Walk back through the Old Testament and you'll find this pattern again and again. Abraham waiting decades for a son he'd been promised. Joseph forgotten in an Egyptian prison for years before the dream God gave him even began to make sense. David, anointed king as a teenager and then spending years running for his life in caves before he ever sat on a throne. The biblical story isn't a story of fast results. It's a story of people who stayed connected to the vine when winter made it look like the vine was dead. Faithfulness is showing up consistently over time. When it's inconvenient, when you're tired, when results aren't visible and the enthusiasm you started with has completely worn away. It's keeping the commitment you made before circumstances changed. And here's the thing about our culture. We are allergic to long-term consistency. We've been shaped by algorithms that promise immediate feedback, immediate results, immediate fruit. And when the fruit doesn't appear on schedule, we start questioning whether the tree is even alive. But fruit doesn't work that way. Hebrews 11:1 puts it plainly. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. It's not a feeling. It's a stance you hold before the evidence arrives. When this is spirit-produced, it doesn't require you to feel confident every single day. It just requires connection. Stay connected to the vine long enough, and the fruit comes. The people who play the long game tend to end up somewhere the impatient ones never reach.
Gentleness. This is maybe the most misunderstood one. We read gentle and we immediately picture something soft-edged, harmless, easily passed over. We confuse it with timidity, with people-pleasing, with the kind of quiet that comes from having nothing left to say. But that is not what this word means, and to miss it is to miss something genuinely powerful. In the Greco-Roman world, prautes, the Greek word behind gentleness, was used to describe a war horse that had been trained. Not a horse that was weak, a horse that was powerful, built for battle, capable of tremendous force, and completely responsive to the hand of the rider. The strength was fully intact, every bit of it, but it had been submitted to direction. That's the image. And Jesus used this exact word to describe himself in Matthew 11. I am gentle and lowly in heart. This is the same Jesus who walked into the temple, saw the money changers turning a house of prayer into a marketplace, and dismantled it. Tables overturned, coins scattering across stone floors, the shouts of merchants. He had power, and he placed it under something bigger than his ego. That's what gentleness looks like. It's not passivity, it's deliberate restraint. And in your relationships, in the places where you carry authority or influence, this matters deeply. Because most of the damage done in marriages, in parenting, in friendships, it's not done by evil people. It's done by people with unrestrained strength. Sharp words said because you could say them. Pressure applied because you had the leverage. Gentleness is the spirit saying, you have power here. Use it carefully. Hold it like a branch holds fruit, firmly, yes, but without crushing what it's meant to carry.
Self-control. Here's the honest version. Willpower is a finite resource. You know this. By Thursday, the discipline you started the week with has usually been spent on 100 small decisions, and the thing you were trying to resist has found you at your lowest moment. And you've done it again. And the cycle that follows, the shame, the renewed resolution, the failure, the deeper shame, that cycle is one of the most privately exhausting experiences a person can carry. Paul understood this tension. In Romans 7, he writes about it with a kind of raw honesty that still reads like a journal entry. The thing I want to do, I don't do. The thing I don't want to do, that's what I keep doing. He wasn't describing spiritual immaturity, he was describing the human condition. And the answer he arrives at isn't more effort, it's the spirit. Because self-control as a fruit of the spirit isn't willpower. It's not gritting your teeth and white-knuckling your way through desire. It's more like reorientation. When what you want begins to change, not because you forced it, but because something inside you is actually being renewed, the old pull starts to lose gravity. The desires that once had so much power begin to feel less like temptations and more like invitations to something you no longer want. Not all at once. The process is slow and honest and sometimes frustrating. But the direction is different. The branch doesn't fight the vine. It draws from it. And the life that flows from that connection naturally moves toward health. The Spirit doesn't just help you say no, He begins to change what you actually want. And when your wants start aligning with what's truly good, that's not restriction. That's the quietest, most durable kind of freedom there is.
Every fruit on that grid, from love to self-control, is proof that God never designed you to produce goodness on your own. He designed you to receive it from a root deeper than your willpower ever reached. But here's what most people never stop to ask. If the fruit is struggling to grow, what's happening to the soil? The next video reveals exactly what the Bible says about the hidden conditions of the human heart and why you may have felt empty even in your most spiritual seasons.